Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I leave the library and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Greetings, friends. It's a temperate day here in suburban Chicago, and I'm enjoying my walk home in the late afternoon from the library. As I mentioned in the last episode, the sky is a mottled gray, which could lead to rain, but already did earlier in the day, so I think I'm going to get by without getting rained on. That'll be fun. So I remarked in the last episode that there were some new games I had played that I hadn't talked about yet. It seems like this is a perfect opportunity then for me to talk about those games. In other words, it's time for Espresso, triple shot. I made a mistake in the last episode. I mentioned a game which I don't think I'd talked about yet. And I went and looked on the podcast feed, and it doesn't look like I talked about it yet. Therefore, I'm going to jump right in and start talking about Escape Plan. Escape Plan is a recent game from Vital Lacerda. I think it's the second most recent one, the most recent one being Weather Machine. The game previous to Weather Machine is Escape Plan, and the game previous to that was On Mars, and they did have a expansion for On Mars in there somewhere. In Escape Plan, you play a group of criminals who has carried out a heist of some sort. You have squirreled your money away in various businesses, and you are laying low, but the cops are on to you, my friend. And so you have 3 weeks, I think, or 3 days. I don't really know. I think it's 3 weeks I think it's 3 days actually, to get your stuff together and get out of town. That's the premise of the game. The way the game works is actually very similar to many other Vital Lacerda games that you've played. You have a variety of different ways that you can interact with things, and you can acquire things that make your interactions more efficient, and resources are very limited, so it's hard to do everything you want to do, and you are trying to get stuff done sometimes before other people because there are limited resources. The plot of the game generally is that you are running around town for these 3 days getting ready to leave. The money, your share of the loot from the heist, was invested in local businesses. There are 6 local businesses that have your investments, and you are visiting as many of them as you can. Some of the places you visit, you can get cash, and that cash is really useful for paying informants and helpers and bribing people and buying equipment and basically just getting ready to get out of town. The other 3 businesses that you have invested in will give you investment money. So in that place, you're not actually taking cash out, but you're reminding them that they owe you money, and then you'll get the money later or something. It's not entirely clear. But in the gameplay, the way it works is that you are going to try to visit as many of these locations as you can, and you have to kind of decide, do I visit the ones where I get cash, or do I visit the ones where I get investment money? And I think there's actually 6. Yeah, there's 3 of each that you can visit and get stuff from. Or maybe there's 9. There's 9. There are also a variety of different pieces of equipment that you can purchase if you go to the right kinds of places. There are mercenaries you can hire in the form of biker gangs. There are assistants that you can recruit. And like a lot of Vital Lacerda games, it's all about sort of accumulating efficiencies. One of the tricky things in the game is that you are constantly being hounded by the cops. And so whenever you pass through an area where there's a police officer, you have to be able to elude that police officer. And eluding the police officers is pretty hard. So you're constantly having to acquire resources for eluding police officers, or you take damage from them, and the damage is really costly at the end of the game. It is an efficiency puzzle with a lot of planning. There's a lot of head-to-head interaction because they're very limited resources and they're all taken from the board. So you're really trying to decide where you're going to go in order to get what you need, but also get there before other people who might go there to get that, or go somewhere where they're not going. I thought it was fun. I liked it better than the Gallerist because I did not like the theme of the Gallerist. I think I understand what people sort of generally say when they say this is one of Lacerda's lesser works. I can recognize that the Gallerist is a better game than Escape Plan. I like both On Mars and Weather Machine better than Escape Plan, but I like Escape Plan better than Gallerist because, again, I didn't really love the Gallerist and I did not like the theme at all on that. But generally it is a very Lacerda game. I mean, if you hate Lacerda games, you're not gonna like Escape Plan. Although, from a lot of what I read, if you like Lacerda games, you still might not like Escape Plan. But I had a good time with it. I thought it was fun and worth trying at least once if you're like that kind of game. And that's from Eagle Gryphon, I believe is the publisher. Next up, I want to talk about a classic party game. This is Time's Up Title Recall. Time's Up is a classic party game built on the model of the old Celebrities game. The way Time's Up works is that you have a deck of cards. Everybody gets a portion of that deck of cards. They get to pick some of those to put into the pot. Then all the cards are put into a pot, and then you have multiple rounds using that same deck of cards in which people try to guess the answer to the things on the cards. So the first round, taboo style, you are giving clues, trying to get people to say the title of a thing. Title recall is what it's called because everything is a title of something. In the second round, you're only allowed to say one word to try to get someone to guess the title. And in the third round, you do hand motion. You can do like charades style or like hand motions to try to pantomime, to try to get people to say things. You know, it's in the style of Celebrity, the full game Celebrity, or more recently Monikers, which uses the same pattern. All in all, I think it's pretty fun. If anything, I maybe like it a little better than Monikers because I like titles as a thing, but I don't know that it's inherently any better. It's about the same as Monikers or just playing Celebrity. But it was fun. The challenging part, you only get 30 seconds, so it's a really tight playtime. And in the rules, they suggest you play in teams of 2. I don't like that. I like dividing the whole group into 2 teams and having, one person giving clues to 2 or 3 people rather than one-on-one. So that's my preferred mode. We had a good time with it. That's Time's Up Title Recall. I want to take a moment here to mention Mad Gab. We played one quick round of Mad Gab. This is a game from 1996 that is essentially the same game that Incoherent is. There's a slightly different way that you use the cards, and frankly, I think the way that the cards work in Mad Gab are better, but it's essentially the same game. I'm not going to do more of a review of it than this because one, we played literally one round. Each person gave clues once. We're like, that's enough. But 2, just go listen to my review of Incoherent. It's the same game. That's Mad Gab, originally published in 96, generally available at Goodwill or something. Okay, so a dusty game I wanted to talk about. Let's talk about Escape Curse of the Temple. Escape the Curse of the Temple is the first Christian Ostby game that I played. It is a real-time dice rolling game in which you are a group of explorers trying to escape a dangerous temple. Think about the opening of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That's what this game is like. In this game, you are trying to get out the front door of the temple. You're rushing to do so, and you're rolling dice really fast. It's a high-pressure game, super fun. I have the big box, but we almost never play anything out of the big box because the base game is really fun unless you've played it a bunch of times. Once you've played a bunch of times and you're pretty good at it, then you could start mixing stuff in. I play it so rarely that we have a fun time playing the base game, and then I put it away for a couple years, so it stays fresh. It is really fun. It is one of my favorite real-time games, and if you haven't played it, you definitely should. Generally, the way the dice rolling works, you have a meeple that's on a tile, and you're trying to move from room to room. In order to move to another room, you have to roll a certain combination on your dice. You're allowed to constantly roll and re-roll, sort of like you're doing re-rolls in Yahtzee. It's just there's no limit to them. And then if you want to spend some of the dice you've used, you just say out loud, I'm spending a guy and a torch, and you pick those up, and then you move your person or whatever. The tricky part of the game is that you're trying to move through this temple. You're trying to find these gem areas and find gems. When you find the gems, that makes it easier to get out of the temple. And then there are dice that lock. So if you roll a black mask on one of the dice, it locks and you can't re-roll it until you get a gold mask, which allows you to unlock 2 of your locked dice. It can be real tricky if you're playing with lots of people and you aren't sticking together. You can have someone get locked up, and if they don't get out of the temple, everyone loses. So the other thing that's great is twice the game comes with a soundtrack, and twice during the game and once at the end, there's this increased pace music that says you have to get back to the safe room in, I think it gives you 30 seconds maybe, or a minute. And if you don't get back to the safe room, then you lose one of your dice and it becomes epically harder. It's a great game, Escape the Curse of the Temple. If you haven't played it, you definitely should. Get out there and do it. All right, last game I want to talk about today is 3 Laws of Robotics. This is a game from Floodgate Games. I missed the name of the designer. This is a sort of light social deduction game. It's got a clever twist in the idea that you are a robot and you're on one of 3 teams, but you don't know which team you're on. And the goal of the game is to get your key, or get as many keys as possible, into the hands of the robot on your team with the highest rank, which could be you. And the way it plays is that you get your loyalty card and you hold it up so everyone can see it. And you all go around and you get to ask one question of the other players. The other players are allowed to lie if they want, although there's limited utility in that. Sometimes it's helpful. And your goal is just to figure out who's on your team and are they higher rank than you or not. Some really interesting logical deductions that you can do as you play. It's an interesting game. For me, it's interesting emotionally as well. I had a friend who was working on a game with exactly this premise. You are computer AI programs. It's a social deduction team game. You don't know which team you're on. That was the premise of his game. He worked on it for a while, never really cracked how to play it. And then this game came out. This is my first opportunity to play it. I got it in a trade. And I will say this person figured out a pretty good way. It's pretty fun. I don't know that it's definitely more fun than the versions of the game that my friend made, but this one works pretty well. It's easy to explain, fun to play. That's 3 Laws of Robotics. Enjoyable, I would say. Although, like I said earlier, or in the last episode, has nothing to do with Isaac Asimov's 3 Laws of Robotics, which is annoying. So that's the end of my Espresso. What games have you been playing lately? Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and share that with us. We'd love to hear it. If you want to reach out to me, hit me up. Brendan is my name. Wombat929 is my username on Board Game Geek. Brendan@rattleboxgames.com is my email address. If you'd like to play a game with me asynchronously online, Wombat929 is my username on Board Game Arena and Boitaju and Yukata.de. Send me an invite and we'll play a game. Or, reach out on Board Game Geek and we'll connect, and then we can connect. I don't know, some of those platforms don't let you send an invite unless we're already connected as friends. So, well, thanks for joining me on my walk today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.